Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to teach tonight and put up with me for a little while. You know, getting up here is never easy. I asked Miss Nancy would she play for me while I read it, but she said no. Before we begin, I want to start with an object lesson. Those of us who are at Family Supper tonight, I want to ask you two questions. What was the design and color of Brother Arnold's apron?
Checkered black and white.
There we go. We got a winner. All right. Did anybody else notice?
He knows that because he made it.
That's cheating. Well, we're going to discontinue that question. We'll move on to something else.
I'm taking orders.
All right. Well, I'll see you after church. I got you. Who noticed the little plant that Ms. Robin put out on the barn?
You noticed what?
The little plant. Ms. Robin, when she was decorating before we started, she had put a plant out there on the barn in front of the pillar. Anybody know what that was?
Mustard and mayonnaise.
No, not quite. It was a potted plant, but it kind of looked like a fern with cranberries in it. I say that, and to have this object lesson, moving on into our main lesson tonight, why the need for four Gospels. Many people often wonder why there are four Gospels instead of one big Gospel, because all of them pretty much tell the same story, right? The only flaw with that is that not everyone looks and reacts to things the same way. Brother Gary, right off the bat, knew what color the shepherd was. He knew the assignment. Not everyone has the same views or focus points on an event. And sometimes they don't even have an event recorded because it's not relevant to them. Another argument for only having one gospel is that people say it's the same information wrote down 4 different times. But I beg to differ on that. The Gospels of Matthew and Mark were written around the same time of 50 to 60 AD. However, Luke was written between 60 and 61 AD. But the Gospel of John was written until 80 to 90 AD. Even though the Gospels have some of the same information, doesn't mean they all sat around the family supper table one night and took notes of what each one was writing down. One of the main reasons that one Gospel would have not sufficed is that one telling of Jesus' ministry could have left out important information. The Gospels can be looked at as the greatest eyewitness account of Jesus' ministry. Each telling Jesus' ministry focused on different areas because it was important to the author. If we had only focused on one area, we would have missed an important story of Jesus healing 2 blind men, which is only found in Matthew 9, 27 to 31. Or how Jesus raised a widow's son from the dead, which is only found in Luke 7, 11 through 17. I'm going to take the Gospel of John, for example. There are 6 different miracles that is recorded in John that Jesus performed that aren't recorded in any other Gospel. 6 of them. Does this make these 6 miracles any less important? No, it doesn't, because they were important to John, so he recorded them. And the famous author and detective J. Warner Wallace takes a more modern view on the need for 4 Gospels. Wallace states in his Cold Case Christianity book that the recording of Jesus' ministry is a lot like a cold case that needs to be solved. His approach is that of a homicide detective. He suggested to read the Gospels as if you were looking for evidence to solve a crime. For instance, if a crime happens, detectives will ask as many people as they can for information. This type of detective work ensures that the person involved in the crime is not biased or leaving out important details. The same can be true for the Gospels. Each of these encounters recorded with Jesus were seen and understood differently by the authors of the Gospels. This approach to the four Gospels can help us make a case for Christianity. Not only do we as Christians need to make a case for Jesus, we also need to have four Gospels so that we can be better prepared to defend it. For example, one miracle that Jesus performed has taken much criticism is when Jesus fed the 5,000. This miracle that Jesus performed was the only one that was recorded in all four Gospels. However, each telling of the story had different details that were observed and documented. I ask you to turn to John chapter 6, verses 8 and 9. John chapter 6, starting in verse 8, reads, "One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, 'There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many?'" I ask you to turn over to Mark 6:39. Mark 6, verse 39 reads, "Then he instructed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass." The importance of these two verses in these two different Gospels is that John is the only Gospel that records where the loaves and fish come from. Whereas in Mark, it's the only Gospel that notes the color of the grass. None of the Gospels say that, of either one. These different details that were recorded of this miracle help to support the reality of this miracle happening. The Gospels are more than just stories of Jesus' ministry. They are the foundation for our faith because the four Gospels record the birth, life, ministry, death, resurrection, and Jesus' ascension into heaven. Another example for the importance of the four Gospels can be taken from the Old Testament, way back yonder, years and years. The story of Noah and the great flood is my example. It is only recorded in the book of Genesis and documents only one person's account of the event, Noah's. Even though we as Christians know the story to be true, many skeptics today question the validity of Noah's recorded account. There's only one account that's documented in the Bible. It's hard to believe that it rained for 40 days, 40 nights, and everything was flooded, and the little old boat was the only thing that's left. Or big old boat was little. But it was the only thing left. It's hard to believe that. This can relate to someone telling you a hunting or fishing story. Now, I know we're in Dixie County, we did the same thing in Lafayette County. They could claim that they missed a big buck or missed that big 10-pounder bass out on the Swan. But they're the only ones to tell you that account. They're the only ones to tell you their fishing story. Me and Papa Orvis have got some many fishing stories, but we're not going to those. Even though we know the person is telling the truth, others around us might not believe it. But if 4 people of the person's friends also claim the same story, more people are more likely to trust that source. Because why? Because not one person, but 4 others. So 5 people seeing this story. An important fact of the 4 Gospels is that the audience for which it was written for. Dan Akin is the president of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. He completed a study in 2004 on the four Gospels and gives details on what audience they're intended for. Aiken reached the conclusion that, quote, Matthew, writing to the Jews, was interested in establishing Jesus' messiahship and the regal rights of Jesus as King of the Jews. In doing so, he traced the genealogy of Jesus back to David and Abraham. Begot this, he begot that. That's a little tiresome to read there in 1 Matthew, but it is important because it traces it all the way back. Going on, Mark, writing to the Romans, was interested in capturing those moments of Jesus that showed him as a man of action and the servant of the Lord. The reason Mark was written to the Romans was, Romans at that time, they were the people, they were the empire. There's nothing but Rome. And they seen action, and they related to action because they were a people of action. You could tell them the story all along, but they seen Jesus, they seen somebody do something that appealed to them. Luke was written primarily to a Greek Hellenistic audience and focuses on Jesus' humanity. Consequently, Luke traces Christ's genealogy all the way back to Adam. But John wrote to the world, in a sense, a timeless, universal audience. More than any other writers, he stressed the deity of Christ and his unique relationship with the Father. The reason that John was written as a timeless, universal sense is that it appeals to everyone. They were written to the Jews. As Gentiles, we didn't understand all the details, all the shenanigans that was going on at that time. But John wrote it that we would understand, that Lafayette County could understand, that someone in the Middle East or out west, they could understand the information that was being displayed or trying to get the same information that was trying to be conveyed. Using this information, we can see the need for the different Gospels. Each one was written to an audience in a way that they would be able to recognize and understand what was happening. That is the reason why there are 4 different Gospels instead of 1. As we close, I want to remind you that Jesus charged the disciples and us as followers to go out and preach to all the nations the good news. Mark 16:15-16 reads, And he said to them, Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not will be condemned. Our need for the 4 Gospels goes much further and much deeper than just reading stories of Jesus' life. These 4 encounters of Jesus' life are what we can use to reach people all over the world. Just like those missionaries that are over there doing the Lord's work. The Advent season, this Christmas season. They don't have their families, but they accept that because they are doing what they believe that the Lord is leading them to do. Depending on the audience that we're trying to reach, one gospel might be easier to understand than the other. If you're a person of action, like the Romans, well, that gospel is the best one for you. So I challenge you, as you read through the story of Jesus' life this Advent season, look for evidence that you can use to make a case for Jesus.